Yo, what's up, family? This is Pastor Wayne. I can't express enough how much both.
When I see you in my nightmare, and you're closer than I should bear, with face clear, nails alone. Don't let the burden, not let the love in. When I see you in my nightmare, and you're closer than I should bear, with face clear, nails alone. Don't let the burden, not let the love in. When I see you under the sun, and my heart beats the only one, with face thin and nails alone. Don't let the burden, not let the love in. Don't let the burden, not let the love in. Not let the love in. Not let the love in. Not let the love in.
Regular life.
Being with people and going to church.
What do you think the first thing you're going to do is when you see your friends?
I'm going to hug every single person I see.
Psalm 23.
A Psalm of David.
The Lord is my shepherd.
I shall not want.
I shall not want.
Jehová es mi pastor, nada me faltará.
He makes me lie down in green pastures.
He leads me beside still waters.
He restores my soul.
He restores my soul.
Me pastoreará.
He restores my soul.
He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake.
Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death.
Even though I walk through the valley.
Even though I walk through the valley
of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil.
No temeré mal alguno.
I will fear no evil.
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 Porque tú estarás conmigo.
For you are with me.
You are with me.
for you are with me.
With me.
Your rod, your staff,
They comfort me.
You prepare a table for me in the presence of my enemies.
You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows.
Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me
all the days of my life.
Me seguirán todos los días de mi vida.
Todos los días de mi vida.
And I shall dwell.
and I shall dwell
in the house of the Lord forever.
Forever.
Por largos días.
Por largos días.
Forever.
This is the word of the Lord.
This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Oh, my soul, oh, my Jesus, Judas sold you for 30. I'd have done it for less. Oh, my soul, oh, my Savior, Peter denied you 3 times. I have denied you more. As the nails went in, I was standing right there as you breathed your last. I shook my head and I cried, oh my God, what have we done? We have destroyed your son. Oh my God, what have we done? We have destroyed your son. Oh my soul, oh my Jesus, Judas sold you for 30. I'd have done it for less. Oh my soul, oh my Savior, Peter denied you 3 times. I've denied you more, and the blood ran down. I was standing right there, and the water poured out. I shook my head and I cried, oh my God, what have we done? We have destroyed done? We have destroyed your son. Oh my God, what have we done? We have destroyed your son. Oh my God, what have we done? We have destroyed your son. Oh my God, what have we done? We have destroyed your son. Oh my God, what have we done? We have destroyed your son. Oh my God, what have we done? We have destroyed your son. Oh my God, what have we done? We have destroyed your son.
Yo, what's up, family? This is Pastor Wayne. I can't express enough how much both Rashida and I miss you so much. We can't wait to see you. Wrap holy arms around you. Give hugs. We miss seeing your faces, your smiles, just in person. We look forward to that. Today, I am at home worshiping with my family, with you all, as we listen to Pastor Aaron and Dana carry us on inside our series in Psalms 23. So I'm super excited about that, excited to worship with my family at home. I'm excited to be listening to Pastor Aaron and Dana just go in. But before we dive in, I just wanted to take a time to slow down and acknowledge where things are at in our country right now. If you have been paying attention to social media, paying attention to news feeds, you know all around the country there's so much brokenness. There's fires, there's riots, there's death, there is pain and suffering all around the country. And so many people are trying to figure out, how do they categorize this? Where do we put this at? Is this real? Is this false? Are people exaggerating what their experiences are? Is this uncalled for? Well, without trying to make on comments on whether rioting is called for or not, that's not what we're trying to do. But I do want to bring you in by just connecting with me personally as your pastor, someone that you know, that you see, that you broken bread with, and just share what my experience as an example of what many experiences of people just like me are. And you can ask me about any of these things. As when I was 17, there was an incident, without going into the incident, but the way the incident ended is with a police officer's knee on my neck. So when I see this thing inside the news, it's a little traumatizing to me. His knee was on my neck, and I remember turning back to try to see his face, and I remember his words. They was etched into my mind. That he says, "Turn back around before I shoot you in your blank face and kill you." Now, I was scared. Last thing I didn't want to die. And even at that time when I was 17, I'm in my 40s now. When I was 17, there was all these stories and these things that was happening with people my age as a young black 17-year-old kid was being accidentally killed by police officers reaching for their wallet or something like that. And the only thing inside my mind is, I don't want that to be me. So I was scared. I turned my head into the dirt and just embraced the dirt. The police officer books me. He brings me to jail, and he writes down that I was resisting arrest. And I remember I got a white lawyer that was given to me by the city, and I tell him, well, I didn't resist arrest. I know I didn't resist arrest because I was scared. So I complied. But the lawyer turned to me and says, why would a police officer say you resisted arrest if you didn't resist arrest? And my own lawyer just wouldn't believe me. And I felt hopeless. when I was 19, there was a store owner, a couple of buddies of mine was standing outside of a store waiting to get into the store, into a club, and the line went around and outside and in front of the store. And now the store owner, he was afraid that this group of black people that I see outside the store are going to rob me. So he calls the cops and he says, there's a group of black people outside the store trying to rob me right now. One of them has a gun. And I was the tallest one, so he gave them my description. And the reason why I know this is because the cops did show up. They came right to me, guns pointed right to my face, asking me, where's the weapon at? And I was confused. I don't know, what are you talking about? Like, where's the gun? They search me, they find out I don't have no gun, and they're the ones that explained to me, the store owner said that you guys was trying to rob them, and we're like, we haven't even been inside the store. I have an incident out here in Arizona where profiled at a stop, me, my wife, my kids in the car. The police come, they're searching our vehicle, and the police officer said the reason why he pulled me over was because he ran my tags and it said that my car belonged to this guy that was a wanted murderer. Well, I'm like, how? That's crazy. I just renewed my tags, and I don't understand how that could happen. And the police officer got really angry with me for even questioning him. I thought, well, probably I'm just tripping. I took off of work the next day, went right down to DMV to get it fixed. Last thing I want for this to happen. And the people at DMV said, well, your car belongs to you. Your plates are coming back to you. I don't know why the police officer would say that, but I did. Lastly, there was another incident where my house was burglarized while we was in it in the middle of the night, and we called the police in the morning time when we realized we was burglarized. And the police came, and when one police officer, and when that police officer came, he did all the fingerprinting and everything. And at the end, he said, I just need somebody's ID so I could jot it down for the paperwork. I'm like, well, sure. And I gave him my ID. The police officer said, thanks. He goes outside to get some paperwork. He comes back and he tries to arrest me in front of my family. He decided that he felt he needed to run my name through the system just to check things. And now he's taking away my children's father, who they look to for protection, after just realizing someone invaded our home while we were in the home because of a failure to appear on a traffic violation that led to a warrant. Well, and he took me to jail. Thankfully, a judge found out about what happened and came to the jail that day and released me that day, apologizing for what the police officer did. But this is just a small glimpse into just what we go through on a regular basis. Those are just my stories, and there's a bunch more. As a matter of fact, we'll post a link for it, but I did a meeting with some brothers and sisters, just talking about what's going on, and I think it will be really encouraged for you guys to take the time to watch it. It's lengthy, but it's really helpful. The link will be in the feeds for you guys. But that being said, many people ask, how can they help? How can they be there? And one of the things that come to my mind is just the ongoing posture of the church throughout history. One of the things is just lamenting just what's broken inside our country, what's broken right now. That's a way to be with. You see, when you lament, when you lament, you acknowledge that things aren't the way that they should be. Lamenting forces you to have to acknowledge the brokenness, acknowledge the sin, acknowledge the pain in order to lament it. But it says things aren't the way that they should be. When you slow down and you lament, and this has always been the posture of the church, both Old Testament and New Testament, of people that lamented the brokenness that was around them, right? When you lament, you vocalize and make known what's wrong. When you lament, you emphasize as a way of being with the broken, being with those that are suffering. When you lament, you memorialize as a way of reminding us of the brokenness, and lament always points towards a hope in God. There's a difference between just lamenting and just feeling just guilt and stuff like that. here's a wonderful opportunity for us to slow down together as a body of believers and just spend some time lamenting before we go into our service this morning, lamenting for our country. And the way that we can all do this together as one is write down your laments in your chat feeds, whether you are on Facebook, whether you are on YouTube. Write down what you are lamenting for in this season, in this time. Like, I lament this, I lament that. And let me tell you, it's not about being theologically correct. So don't figure it's your need to go police this person and go police that person. No, that's not right. No, this isn't right. But just lamenting, and this is a way for us to be there for one another. So normally during this time, there'll be a stillness slide that allows us to slow down and just think about God. But what we're doing this time is we're going to have a time of lamenting together. The music will continue to play. Write your laments into the feed as a way of being together with one another. And then after the music stops, we'll continue on with some more worship, and then we'll go into our service, Psalms 23. I just want to thank you so much for being there with us in this time. Let's lament together and let's worship together. Lord be with you. Peace out, family.
Praise the Savior, and who can tell how much we owe him? And let us render to him all we are in now, in now, in now. Only are in there, in there. And true Jesus is the name that charms us, and he for conflict fits in arms of. Nothing moves and nothing harms us. while we trust in Him, in Him. And trust in Him, He says forever. And He's so faithful, changing never. And neither force nor guile can sever those He loves from Him, from Him, from Him. Yeah, those He loves from Him, from Him, from Him. From Him. From Him. Keep us, Lord, oh, keep us clean into Thyself and still believing until the hour of our receiving from His joys with Thee, with Thee, with Thee. Yeah, from His joys with Thee, with Thee, with Thee. From His joys with Thee. From His joys with Thee. Then we shall be where we would be, and then we shall be what we should be. But these are not now, nor could be. Soon shall be our own, our own. Soon shall be our own, our own. From His joys with Thee, You soon shall be your own, and for all his joys with thee, soon shall be your own, with thee. With thee, with thee. We are the cold and starving. We are the scared and trembling. We are the desperate lost. We are the lone and hopeless. We are the outcast of friends. We are the one on one. Is coming for us. You are not to see, and you made us discarded. We were the weak and useless. We needed rescue and help. We were the long forgotten. We were the disregarded. We couldn't care for ourselves. But our Father was coming for us. You were not to see, and you made us wrong. You were not to see, and you gave us a home. You were not to see, and you made us whole. You were not to deceive. You gave us hope. For remote civilian, and now we are your children. I was for another, and now I am a brother.
Sin was my resistor, but now I am a sister.
For remote civilian, and now we are your children. I was for another, patiently for the Lord. He climbed and earned my crown. Brought me up out of the pit, from the miry clay. I will sing a new song. I will sing a new song. Waited patiently for the Lord. He climbed and earned my crown. Brought me up out of the pit, from the miry clay. I will sing a new song. I will sing a new song. To sing this song. To sing this song. Sing this song. Set my feet upon a rock, and made my footsteps firm. Many will see, many will hear. I will sing a new song. 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 To sing this song. To sing this song.
We've got some difficult days ahead, but it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And
amplified, creation beautified, our King bona fide, the Savior certified, and our hearts clarified, no color dignified, all caste declassified, all weakness mortified, and last breath to genocide. Your spirit glorified, your will is glorified, sin with no tide, and our Father magnified, your kingdom multiplied, all earth is occupied, all worship purified, forever ratified, and all systems rectified, our hope is satisfied, and all our praise specified, and our ranks distratified, peace to the terrified, and all saints now unified, your promise verified. Whoa. Your glory amplified, creation beautified, and our King bona fide, the Savior certified, and ours clarified, and all color dignified, and all caste declassified, and all weakness fortified, the last breath to genocide, your spirit glorified, your will is gratified, sin with no delight, and our Father magnified, your kingdom multiplied, and all earth occupied, all worship purified, forever ratified, all systems rectified, and our hope is satisfied, all praise now specified, and
Psalm 23.
The Lord is my shepherd.
The Lord is my shepherd.
I shall not want.
He makes me lay in green pastures.
He leads me inside still waters.
Restores my soul.
He restores my soul.
He restores my soul.
He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake.
For his name's sake.
Of his name's sake.
Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death,
I feel no evil.
I will fear no evil.
I will fear no evil. For you are with me.
You are with me. Your rod and your staff comfort me.
You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies.
You may anoint my head with oil.
Anoint my head with oil.
Anoint my head with oil.
You anoint my head with oil.
My cup runs over.
My cup overflows.
My cup overflows.
My cup runneth over.
Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me
all the days of my life.
All the days of my life.
All the days of my life.
All of the days of my life. I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
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 Good job.
And to call this place home, I am humbled to have this as my church family, and I'm thankful that all of you have joined in. I want to just give you a couple of things. First of all, there was a move of the Spirit that happened as we were lamenting together. Dana and I could not stop crying, and I don't know if I've had that powerful of an experience lamenting, and I wish we were in the same room together so we could have hugged. But I will tell you this, I believe Pastor Wayne led us in a Spirit-led reality. Today is the day of Pentecost, the day the Holy Spirit fell upon his church and was sent out into the streets to speak in all kinds of languages. This was this beautiful day in which there was this unity that was brought because of the Spirit. And today we're lamenting all the division that we're experiencing in our world and in the church. This is not what the Spirit has come to do. And so as we celebrate the day of Pentecost, let us remember that this is not by might nor by power, but it is by the Spirit, says the Lord. And then we get done with that and we end up watching these little kids reciting the Lord's Prayer together.
Perfect. It's perfect.
What a contradiction.
Perfect.
I mean, you have tragedy and then cute little faces that you just want to pinch. And I think that only in the house of the Lord can you weep with those who weep and rejoice with those who rejoice all at the same time. It is so often contradiction, but I want you to remember this. We do not weep like the rest of the world. We don't. We don't weep or lament that leads to despair. Our weeping and lamenting leads to hope. We have great hope and worship, and so that being done in that time of worship was really powerful. You watching those kids, what'd you think, babe?
You know, they're the coolest kids on the planet, so that's the start. But I think to be able to think about what those little glimpse into the lives of our kids was so perfect when we're talking about hope. I know Aaron and I have prayed for years for our kids and for the kids of this church that they would love him and serve him at a young age and do everything they called him to do, that he's called them to do. And when you hear them quoting Psalm 23 at a young age, they are being set up for greatness in God's kingdom. And that might be lowliness to the world, but greatness in the kingdom. Yeah. So what?
And you got a lot of stuff coming up with VBS.
We do. Our kids are awesome, and we have VBS coming where we're going to do it different. Obviously, with quarantine, we have to do it a little different. But we're going to be creating little bags that we're going to put on everybody's doorstep, every kid's doorstep, with a T-shirt all the craft supplies they'll need, all the snack supplies that they'll need, and then we'll Zoom the classes in. So we'll still do kids' church together. They'll have everything they need. So there will be, in the next little bit, there will be, watch Facebook, because there'll be a sign up that we'll need you to sign up, just like we did at Easter. If you
So
sign
we can
up,
get
we'll
you
bring
supplies.
we'll bring you
Yeah.
the package, yeah.
A couple of quick announcements, and then we're just going to go into Psalms 23. Make sure you download the app, y'all. Please download the app. Go online and get to any app store and download the app, Redemption Alhambra. But also, if you want, you can text Alhambra app to 77977. It will send you the link. That app is going to be a key place for us to communicate. Please get it. Go right now, actually, and download it now. Set up your profile, because on that app, there's a schedule that's coming out for all of our prayer times that are going to be happening. Now, I want you to remember this, that we promised you all what we're going to do instead of rushing back into Sunday morning gathering and just trying to entertain people, if you will. Not that we want to do that on a Sunday, but that's what most people, their only Christian life is on a Sunday morning in a sanctuary where they're just listening to songs and sermons. We're going to call you, us, we put out a whole plan of prayer and watching and praying. We're going to have a schedule of See Jesus is going to be working with us to do a seminar online that they're going to teach on Monday nights. There's scheduled for that. If you want to learn how to pray and deepen your prayer life, there's going to be 4 nights a week of prayer and worship. And so this is going to be a call for not just you come sit in the chairs, but you come pray with us. We're going to ask that you get this schedule. It will be on the app today. Also online, we'll be sharing it out. There's going to be nights where different elders each week are going to be leading nights of prayer and worship. And so I just hope that you get involved. And I would just say thank you, thank you, thank you for us. This is not a time for us to figure out when can we get our Sunday mornings back. God has specifically told us, watch and pray and worship. That's a call for you to join in, not to just wait on us, but for us together to call out to Him and cry out to Him. So this week, when we and you were going to be speaking this and all the things that took place, I called Wayne, and he was supposed to be taking this week off, and I asked him, hey man, can you just preach this thing? I don't know if I can say anything. I don't know what. Do you want to preach it? What do we do? I'm just asking him. And he specifically said, no, I'm not doing nothing. He specifically said, no, I'm staying home. And thank God that he is so sensitive to the Spirit on those things. And also, Dana and I, as we were meditating on this, really felt the sense of the Spirit coming and meeting with us, because I don't think there's any other sermon that could be preached right now that could be more powerful than what the Spirit of God wanted us to do. This is appointed by Him because we are in the middle of great tension. I want to bring you in on something that I've been meditating on with Psalms 23. It is right between 22 and 24. And many theologians will call this kind of a trilogy of songs that David put together. Psalms 22 gives some really crazy, dark prayers. You should go read that. Matter of fact, Jesus quoted the verse 1 on the cross when He said, my God, why have you forsaken me? He's quoting this prayer. And it's a cry of anguish. He also, in David's prayer in verse 6, he says, I'm a worm, I'm not a man, scorned by everyone, despised by people. And then it says something crazy. I mean, these lines are, many bulls surround me, strong bulls of Bashan encircle me, roaring lions tear their prey, their mouth wide against me. I'm poured out like water, my bones are out of joint, my heart has been turned to wax, it's melted within me, my mouth is dried. My tongue sticks to the roof of my mouth. There's villains encircling me. My bones are on display. People stare and gloat over me. They divide my clothes. They cast lot. It's supposed to make us as Christians think of Jesus dying on the cross, but it's also a cry from a man who is in the midst of anguish and understands what it means to be have enemies and for them to come against us. What the tension of the world we're living in. I mean, it feels like right now in the world we're more in Psalms 22. It feels that way. Yeah. Well, then Psalms 24 gives a crazy kingly entry where it's like, Who is this King of glory?
Yeah.
Seated on the throne, strong and mighty. Who is this King of glory? And it's this resurrected Savior that is seated on the throne. And it's supposed to make us think of Christ coming and dying on the cross, being forsaken and being abandoned and being murdered at the hands of those who unjustly murder him. And then he raises from the grave, and there is a day where he's coming again.
Yeah.
And that's 22 and 24. Well, 23 is that tension. Right in the midst of the tension, what we see between 22 and 24 is 23. And that is the message we need to hear today. In the midst of this tension, what we need to hear is you have a shepherd who's taking you on the journey through all kinds of places in life. So as we study Psalms 23 today, or even just meditate, it's not really a study, it's more of a meditation. This is the message you, my brothers and sisters, you need to hear. We don't have the answer. We have the shepherd who has the answer. He is the answer. We have a shepherd who is leading us and guiding us through these times of being forsaken and death and all these. He did the work, he's coming again and will finish the work. And right now, in the already not yet, we have a shepherd. So Dana, as we studied this week, we tried to kind of do it like John and Wayne last week. They did such a good job. And so right after service, we started writing our own,
all
little prayers.
Kids,
yeah, exactly.
Thought we were cute.
And so you were going to write yours and I was going to write mine. And then something happened to you.
Yeah. So this is what happened to me. This is my journal. And I went the next morning. I started it Sunday after church.
Yeah.
We were doing it. I did a little bit and I thought I'm going to do this tomorrow during my devotion time. I went outside real early and I was sitting in our sweet little patio cool area, and then the sprinklers popped on. And I didn't know that was gonna happen. So my journal got completely destroyed, including my Psalms 23.
Right.
Which was actually ended up being kind of a good thing because throughout the week, one of the nights while I was sleeping, I'd been reading Psalms 23. I had, in the midst of all of this hurt, I don't know that I've cried this much, honestly. That it wasn't for me, but cried and hurt for so many. And I was listening to some amazing preachers, and I'd gone to sleep one night, and instead of writing this out, I actually had a dream. And
so you had a literal dream.
I had a dream.
So this that you're about to read is not just something you wrote kind of just
I'm not
out
poetic.
of poetic.
I'm
yeah,
not poetic.
It is like a literal dream that you had and got up and wrote this down. And so
I'm not a writer.
Yeah,
I'm not a poet. These amazing poets in our church, insane.
Yeah,
not me.
Okay, not you.
Not me.
Okay,
Not
so
me.
as these slides come up on the screen so you can read along, Dana is going to read through this dream, and then I'm going to ask you some questions. So go ahead and read it, babe.
Sure. Last night I had a dream. It was clear. The type of dream that you feel. I was walking and I heard a voice that was familiar, and it made me feel safe. And I realized it was Jesus. I looked around to find him, and when I saw him, I only saw him from the knees down. And it was then that I realized that I was a sheep, which sounds funny, but in the dream it wasn't strange. It seemed really normal. And then I looked around and I realized there were lots of sheep, and I knew them and they knew me. Jesus led all of us to a garden, and it was beautiful, and it was peaceful, and it was so pure, and I felt rest. It almost seemed like I could smell the purity of this place, and I could feel a cool breeze, and there was fresh water, cool and pure water. And after we had rested, we began to walk. All the while, he kept talking to us, and he kept calling us his sheep. His sheep. His. Again, the voice that felt safe, I listened to, and I felt seen. I felt like he saw each of us. Then I seemed to have been distracted and stopped listening to his voice or looking for his feet, and I found myself somewhere awful and dark, and so dark and I could not hear or see anything other than my own thoughts and fears. And I started making noise, trying to figure out this darkness. And then I realized that even in the darkness, when I chose to listen, I could hear him. And there were even glimpses of his feet as I followed his voice. Then I felt a tap and a tug of his rod and his staff re-guiding me to safety, pulling me closer to him. I was still safe, even in the darkness. We eventually came to the most beautiful spot, full of life and beauty. He had led us here to eat and be nourished on the very best and most delicious food. And as I ate, I noticed in the distance wolves in briar. They would not dare come near us because they feared him. And I recognized some of the wolves, and even some that I had thought were sheep. And we were feasting, and we were safe, and we were protected from being devoured. They were close, but they were weak when he was there. After we ate, I started to notice discomfort in my nose and eyes. I was struggling to smell and see. I couldn't get free of whatever was there. It was then that I felt him. He was pouring fragrant oils on my head. He was rubbing it in my eyes and nose, and I was healed. I could see and hear free from what had been attacking me before. I was overjoyed. I felt free again. I felt his arms around me. And then at this point, my dream had a switch, like they always do. And I wasn't a sheep anymore, but I was me. And I was in his arms. And I realized we were in his arms. And I knew that we'd be there forever.
Man, I don't know how it could be any more poetic. You know what it says? Old people dream dreams. That's what.
I'll take it.
I'll take it.
I want to be a grandma.
I know. I'm telling you, that is so beautiful, babe. I cannot help reading that without thinking about your story. You know, we met 24 years ago now. Been married almost 22. I have watched you go from this scared, abused, feeling forsaken person in bondage to seeing you walk through years and years of continual, and even to this day, times in which God's walking you through this. But you have grown so far from where you were to where you are now. But he's also given you a massive heart for children, which is, I don't think people, you don't just do this because it's like you have to. This is something that you have sensed God's calling on your life. And so when you read some things in here, I also thought there is some very key things that it made it sound like, once again, God giving you a gift to be able to communicate to children. I would love for you to kind of point out the things that you would see in this story or this dream that you would have said to yourself, a girl who's been sexually abused, gone through pain and struggle in her life, had torment and all kinds of things. What would you say to her, to yourself, or to kids in that space as you are meditating on that? What are things that come out to you from Psalms 23 and from your reimagination?
Yeah, definitely kids in it right now, for sure. I think one of the things that stuck out to me big time is that where it came from was seeing Jesus from the knees down and being small. And I think that there's something about being a kid, going through a lot of the hardships that kids go through, and feeling small and feeling insignificant, and feeling like I have a voice but it's not loud enough, or when I speak, grown-ups don't hear me or don't believe me. But being at a place where being seen by the shepherd, being recognized. And I think even what I loved about it too is from the get-go, from the very beginning of my dream, I heard his voice and I knew it. I knew his voice. There was no doubt in my mind who it was. And I think that's probably the first thing, is that we can always be seen, truly seen by our shepherd. Even when we can't fully see him, we are fully seen by him. And we can hear his voice and we can know his voice. I grew up in a farmland, and we had some sweet neighbors about a mile away that had sheep. They were Bessie and Wayne, and I would go over to Miss Bessie's house to help feed the sheep. And it was amazing because she would go out into the field where the sheep were in their spot. They would they would hear Miss Bessie and they would come running because they knew her voice. They knew Miss Bessie. And she would throw them food and love on them and treat them so kind, but they knew her voice. So I think that's probably the first thing. The other thing that really stuck out to me is that walking through the shadow of death and fearing no evil, that I know there were a lot of times that I felt like dark and very much alone, and not knowing, especially as a child, you don't know how to articulate things, how to make things make sense. You don't know how you're supposed to feel and how you're not supposed to feel at times. So being in that dark, lonely place and just feeling all of it and getting overwhelmed by it, it's easier to focus on the darkness than to stop and listen for his voice again and hear his voice. And I know, again, living in the country, my bedroom, there was a county highway that went in front of our house, and so every once in a while at night, just like every other kid, I would get real scared in the dark and feel like there's things in my room. And once a car came down the freeway, the headlights would go through my entire room, and so I would listen for that car. And then when the lights came through, I would check everything in the room that I thought was scary, and then realize, okay, I'm safe. I can fall asleep. And I really believe that that's what God does, is that when we walk through those valleys of shadow of death, we know he's there when we stop and we listen for his voice. And he gives us those moments of light to remind us. So even godly people in our lives, there's going to be people in our lives that God uses to just remind us that he's there even when we can't see him. He's there walking through it with us. And little glimpses of light where I can remember going to church and just, kids' church, youth group, adult church, and during praise and worship, just being overwhelmed and weeping, but I could never articulate why I was weeping or what I was feeling. I just felt like, this is okay. I'm okay. I feel your presence. I know you're here. And so having these glimpses of just light and darkness and being reminded he's right there with me, even when it's dark and I can't see him. The other thing is the part at the end about being anointed with oil. So the whole proverb, or whole Psalms 23 is all about shepherding. And shepherds will put oil on their sheep's head because bugs will get up in their noses, go in their ears, and plant their eggs or whatever, and then they're infested with these bugs in their noses and their ears. And when that happens, when they struggle with now not being able to smell or hear, and it's all a mess, they'll run their heads into things, they'll rub their heads on the ground, they'll do anything to be free of all of that. And you can even imagine that there's many of them that will bang their heads even to death to be free of this horrible feeling and not being able to smell and hear. And so a shepherd will notice it. A sheep can't say, hey, I got stuff in my ears. A shepherd, because he knows his sheep, will take care of his sheep because he sees it, and so they'll put oil on it, and it's medicinal oil, it's strong scented oil, and then they'll rub it through their noses and ears, and that kills off and prevents this so they can hear and they can see. So even remembering that if your good shepherd sees you, then he's going to see those things that are going on in your mind. I know there's so many times that there's things in our ears, and there's things that we're hearing, and there's things that we're sensing, and we can't get rid of it. This is a darkness I can't get rid of. These are thoughts, these are things that are attacking me, and I can't get rid of them. And in those moments, to know that there's a good shepherd who will come with his oil and just not only heal it, but help us live no longer with it.
That's it. And I've watched you walked through that over the years. That's why when you even say that, there's been times where you would do anything to get rid of this pain, this depression, this struggle, this voices in your head, and you have watched the Lord minister to you. Name some of those ways that there was really some massive turning points where you saw that his oil over you was, and some shift from how you could be free.
Well, I think the biggest thing, one of the biggest things was knowing God's grace. Like his grace became so real to me. And knowing that, just like I was just saying with the sheep, like a sheep isn't going to know to ask for help, or it's sometimes in our pride, I'm not going to ask for help, I don't know how. Or the other thing is thinking I need to know how. I should be able to fix this. I should be able to stop this. I should be able to heal myself. but in his grace that I don't deserve, his grace that I didn't ask for, he comes and rescues us. And one of my favorite verses from that time that was powerful is Psalms 18:19 that says, he rescued me because he delighted in me. I didn't do anything to earn it. It's not my self-righteousness. It's nothing. It's just because he is a good shepherd and I'm his sheep. And I know his voice, and I will follow his voice, and he'll take care of the rest. And finding just that peace and rest in that.
That is so good. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. And I affirm, I mean, I've seen God walk you through so many of those things. And just the thought that he rescued you, not because you did something or could figure it out, but because he delights in us, his sheep. That oil that he rubs on us, his spirit, he delights in us. That's such good insight. I love that big time.
So you did yours as well.
Yep. I'll read mine.
Yeah.
All right, we'll put it on the screen. I'm going to read mine. Once again, I'm not a poet either, but I'll just read it. Okay, here we go. Because I have you as my everything, I can never be in want. You make me come up for a breath to rest in you. Because I try to overwork and I'm drowning in constant noise. You perform skillful surgery on the deepest places of my soul, places I thought I could heal with a Band-Aid. You are leading me to a place that only you know and only you deserve praise for. I am confident it will be such a wonderful destination. I understand I will go through very dark, lonely, and eerie places along the journey, but I will not fear getting lost or being devoured, for you are with me, correcting, carrying, and comforting me every step of the way. You make those who aim to destroy me sit outside and watch as you provide, prepare, and plate a beautiful meal and a loud party for your family. We have so much wine left over, it spills generously out of my cup to all who have need. I try to play hide and seek with goodness and mercy, but I can never win. Thankfully, I cannot get away from you because your loving presence is everywhere. I will never move out for all eternity. You are my home.
Wow. I think that's poetic.
You think so?
I think that's poetic.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
There are a couple things, though, that because I know you, that stood out to me that I want to hear more about. And one of them was, actually these two are kind of together. The part where you said, because I try to overwork and I'm drowning in constant noise. That part, but then also this part I think go hand in hand. I understand I will go through very dark, lonely, and eerie places along the journey, but I will not fear getting lost or being devoured, for you are with me, correcting, caring, and comfort me every step of the way. Let me know, like, tell me what you're thinking when you were writing that, because I know your past and I know what we've been through starting a church and the things we've done, but what does that mean to you?
Well, kind of like what you had said first with the grace reality is when I had a revelation of grace in the person of grace, it literally changed everything for me, because I was drowning in work to try to prove something to God that he had already purchased for me and done for me. And so I was working myself in my self-righteousness into oblivion. I literally was constantly trying to outwork God. And I found myself not comfortable being his sheep, if you will, but would rather have shown him how to be a shepherd. So I was kind of like constantly trying to outwork him and outperform and ultimately put him in my debt. And it wasn't until I heard that he makes me lie down. I really did feel that way with me. Like when Paul got knocked off the horse of his self-righteousness and was blinded, by the light of Christ. I do really feel like self-righteousness is one of the most wicked and deceiving sins out there. It's one of those that can be hid very easily and can keep you blinded. And the fact that he rescued me and saved me and made me lie down.
Wow.
I would not have lied down myself. He literally made me. It's like that line of he made me take a breath in him, because I wouldn't. It's like I just kept thinking of that time where if God did not make me lie down, I would have just kept working and working myself to death.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I saw that. I watched that.
Yeah.
The other thing that stuck out to me, though, and I wanted you to explain, because I think it's powerful, is when you said the hide and seek. Was I try to play hide and seek with goodness and mercy, but I can never win. What did you mean by that?
I don't know. I always think of that line of surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life. And for some reason, it just sounds like a weird game. It's almost like I'm trying to run. Why would you try to run from goodness and mercy? And like the picture that came to my mind is like when I'd play games as a child and try to run away from my dad, but I wanted him to catch me. And so like the hide and seek game of like, you're just running and running from something you can never get away from. And I always felt like self-righteousness or whatever along that line is just this big game. It's like you're running from something or running towards something that is chasing you. You're running after goodness and mercy, but goodness and mercy is chasing you and following you all the days of your life. And I didn't experience freedom until I really saw, like, I don't have to chase this anymore. I really don't have to chase this anymore. I am free and can live in the freedom that Christ has provided for me. So I stopped playing the game, no more hide and seek.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've known you, obviously, like you said, 24 years.
Quite a while.
A little bit. And I know even when we were in college and then several years after, you would get these prophetic words. And it was from different people, different states, different circles of life, no connection in any of these people. But the thing that kept being said over and over that we know was from the Lord is that, one, in your calling, you would never be comfortable.
Yeah.
And two, you in your calling would make people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I think through this, like I could see where the way you wrote it, the struggle of not working. And I can remember early years in our church where it was work.
Yeah.
Like you worked in those early years to try to prove something and do what you thought you were supposed to do. And then there was this beautiful turning point where God definitely transitioned your heart and turned you a different direction. What can you like talk about what shifted in that time as far as what you're called to and how you went from fighting for comfort to living in discomfort?
Yeah, honestly, that whole section on the shepherd correcting, carrying, and comforting is really where all that comes from. I really had to learn from the role of a shepherd, even just being an under shepherd, if you will, that there is so much more to shepherding than we really understand. And Dana and I just had somebody call us a couple months ago when we were confronting some things in their life and we were trying to do it in love. And they literally said to us that it's your job to make me happy, to make us happy. And I just think many of us as sheep, or many of us as people of God, have this sense that God's job is to make us happy. And matter of fact, you see that in a lot of parenting today, is that many people emphasize the role of a parent is to make their children happy and to grow, so much so that in many ways the godly role of correcting has been removed in a lot of ways. We don't know how to correct. And some of it's reaction because people have corrected and done abusive things for sure. But the work of a shepherd that is really difficult is that you want to carry and you want to comfort all the time, but we don't leave room for the times where he makes us uncomfortable. It's much like a father, to be honest. And I read this week and I'll read it to you. Hebrews 12, 3 through 11. I'll try to get to these points fast because I think they're important. So hopefully you all can stay with us as we have this. Hebrews 12 says this: consider him who endured such opposition from sinners. So it's saying, think about Jesus so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. So he's saying if you don't have a picture of Jesus, you'll grow weary and lose heart. Yeah. In the struggle against sin, you have not resisted to the point of shedding your blood. So then it says, listen, you are in a struggle. So many people talk about, I'm in this struggle against sin and I'm struggling. He goes, well, you haven't resisted to the point where you've shed your own blood, right? So we're not fully resisting, right? Like Christ did. You have completely forgotten this word of encouragement that addresses you as a father addresses his son. So here's what he says. Here's the word of encouragement as a father speaks to his son. My son, do not make light the Lord's discipline, and do not lose heart when he rebukes you. Because the Lord disciplines the one he loves. He chastises everyone he accepts as his son. Endure hardship as discipline. God is treating you as his children. For what children are not disciplined by their father? If you are not disciplined, and everyone undergoes, look at that, everyone undergoes discipline, then you are not legitimate, not true sons and daughters at all. Moreover, we have all had human fathers who disciplined us, and we respected them for it. Much more should we submit to the Father of spirits and live. They disciplined us for a little while as they thought best, but God disciplines us for our good in order that we may share in his holiness. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, he produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained. Now, I want you, if you can, to just, there is nothing in me as a father, there's nothing in me as a shepherd, and I would say, I think that's the heart of God. There's nothing in me that wants to hurt or even discipline my children. I feel really awful when I have to, but I know that there are times that I must discipline, and there are many times that I have had to be disciplined. And when I have been disciplined by God or by other in my life, it hurt in the moment. It really did hurt. And there's so many of us who have a struggle with that tension, because we think when a father says, I'm proud of you, and then in the next statement says to us, you know what, this is something you have to work on. We go, how could you just say you're proud of me and then correct me? That's the tension of having a shepherd or having a father, is that he wants to comfort and he wants to carry, but he also must correct if you are legitimately his. If you're a legitimate child of his, he must correct. And so that kind of tension is the hard part. It says, your rod and staff, they comfort me. What comes to my mind this week is Peter. And I want you to follow me with this, because I believe what we need right now, not just what we need right now is a father, a shepherd who will comfort and carry and correct. Think of Peter. Peter, in one moment, with Jesus, he's a follower of Jesus, a legitimate son. One moment he's asking, Jesus is saying, your new name is Rock. And he answered the question right. You're upon this rock, I'm going to build my church. And he gives him a new name. And then just a moment later, he's saying to Peter, get thee behind me, Satan, because he was trying to stand in the way of the work that Jesus was called to do. So he says, I'm proud of you, and then immediately corrects him in the next minute. Think of Jesus going to be killed at the hands of unjust law. Unjust people, Romans against Jews. This is racially motivated. This is structurally and systemically motivated. Yeah. This is evil and unjust, and Jesus is about to be killed, and Peter has his back. He's going, no, I am going to kill whoever tries to kill you. And what he does in that moment is draws the sword of judgment and goes to cut the Roman soldier's head off. And what ends up happening is he just gets the ear, and Jesus now bends down and heals the Roman soldier. This is the hard part about being a shepherd. You want to at that moment go, I'm so proud of you, Peter, for having my back. I'm so proud of you because Jesus has been the one who has stood up for injustice, who has spoken out for those who doesn't have a voice, who would lead them. But then at the same time, because he is their shepherd, would stand and heal the enemy. Would heal the enemy. He would give healing to the one who was there to kill him, and then turn to Peter and say to Peter, this is what he said, put your sword away, Peter. Put your sword away. And then he says, for the one who lives by the sword dies by the sword. And then he teaches Peter right in front of the Roman soldiers, listen, if I wanted to, I could call angels. My Father would come and rescue me if I wanted to be delivered. But then he says, this is part of my Father's plan, and I am going to submit to my Father's plan. And here's the interesting part, Dana. The same Peter who was ready to defend Jesus, minutes later, goes and denies Jesus 3 times. Here's the part when you start taking on yourself your own judgment, is you draw a sword to kill your enemies, and you don't realize you're the one who needs the sword.
Yeah.
You're the one who deserves the sword. Right. You're not dealing with the log in your own eye. And this is what makes pastoring or leading or parenting uncomfortable. Yeah. There are very good things that you want to help, and you want to help those who are needing help. You want to comfort those. And I have spent my life trying to help those who are in need and speaking for those who are unjust and saying those things. And then you get to a place where it's uncomfortable, because then you start seeing those who are facing injustice saying, I need to bring justice. Yeah. I don't trust my Father to bring justice. Yeah. I need to bring justice. And then you have to correct those who need to be corrected. And this is what Jesus is having to do. And here's the interesting part that just blows my mind. Jesus dies, and you would think, well, Peter's denied him 3 times. He's done. He's done. Right. But he comes to Peter and he says, do you love me, Peter? Yes. Do you love me, Peter? Yes. Do you love? I mean, this is what he says to Peter, before. Right. Do you love me? Yes. He says, feed my sheep. This is what Peter wanted to be, a warrior. Right. God called him to be a shepherd. Oof. Right? And this was a hard thing, because so often for us, we want to just get caught up in the momentum, thinking that if we take justice into our own hands, we will bring God's justice into the world. When the reality is, our Father has prepared a table before us in the presence of our enemies. And what we need right now, on this path from why have you forsaken me to Jesus as King, when he is bringing his justice, and it rolls down like we pray for that day when justice, what we need right now is a good shepherd who can get between the sheep and the goats, those who are his and those who are not his. And we have to trust him. What we need right now is to hear our Father say to us. For some of us, put away the sword. For others, knowing that Roman guard kneeling down. Now, this is what came to my mind. He kneels down at the feet of the Roman guard, picks up his ear and puts it back on his head, just like the woman who was the prostitute, who had Pharisees standing around him, and he kneels down and says, those who have sinned, you cast the first stone. And now Peter is standing in the place of saying, if you don't have sin, cast the first stone. The enemy. And what we want is for our enemies to be destroyed. Yeah. What he does is prepares a table before us in the presence of our enemies.
I'm trying real hard to stay quiet. That whole time I wanted to be amen and loud. I'm trying to be quiet because I'm like, but man, that is good.
What's coming to your mind about the prepares a table before us?
Prepares a table is, I think, in this whole passage, what has always blown my mind, because it's not just preparing a table to feast at.
Yep.
but preparing a table to feast at with our shepherd, with our Father, in the presence of our enemies. He's setting us in this place of being fed and nurtured and cared for so well, being spoiled.
Yeah.
And afar off, you can see the enemies.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is so many times we get in that place and we start noticing the enemies and we start thinking kind of what you're just saying, like, how are we going to get rid of them? Or what do we need to do? Jesus, get that guy, take care of this. Instead of going, God, I just want to be here with you at this feast, feasting on what you have given to spoil me with. And as my eyes are on that, as my mind is wrapped around that, as my heart and my emotions and my will is wrapped around that, he's protecting me from my enemies. And the crazy thing is I don't have to worry about how he's going to destroy my enemies or what he's going to do, because the reality is he's going to take care of it. It's not for me to take care of. Even this last week I was reading in Genesis 4 the story of Cain and Abel, where Cain, out of anger, you may know the story, Cain, I'm sure, Cain kills Abel out of anger and jealousy and bitterness and rage. And then when God comes around and says, hey, where's Abel? Cain's response is, am I my brother's keeper? Like, he murdered, he lied, the whole thing. And God's response literally blew my, like, I wrote in my journal in big letters, this is blowing my mind because I don't know that I've ever read this. But he said, he said that his blood's voice is speaking to me. Abel's blood, the blood of Abel has a voice that's speaking to me. I know that he's dead. And now the ground, Cain, the ground is cursed. And you're going to be a wanderer. And you're going to be gone. And Cain's response was panic. Like, okay, I'm done. Because I won't be able to be around you. I won't hear your voice. And I'm going to be a foreigner. And I'm going to be killed. And God's response to the murderer was, nope. No. I'm going to put a mark on you that's making it clear that nobody can murder you, and if they do, it's going to be 7 times worse for them. So even the murderer was cared for. So I can focus on Jesus and know that whatever he's doing with my enemy, he's got it. It's not for me to worry about. I can focus on this beautiful feast and my amazing shepherd.
That is the hard part about being a Christian.
For sure.
And it's a hard part about being his shepherd.
Especially right now.
Is that his justice does not look like what we often will want or even know.
Right.
And we have built in us this desire for what is right. We have it because that's godly. That's a godly desire. Yeah. And the things that we're seeing are not right. But that story also makes us think of the parable of, and I want you to get your communion because we're going to take communion together. The parable of the lost son. I want you to just think about that. What was God's justice as he prepares a feast for this lost son who deserved death, who said, I want you to die and I want all your inheritance, and he goes and spoils it. And he comes back and he sits at the table and a lamb is killed and they're feasting. And what happens? The brother goes outside and he's jealous. The picture that I have of he prepares a table before us in the presence of our enemies is that the way God executes his justice, if you will, is by protecting and spoiling his children, by putting on a loud party that those who want to kill you and want to destroy you are watching all of this happen. But we want it to be that we go out and kill that older brother. Right. We should have been killed because we abandoned our father. Right. But we want it to be that we want him to be killed. But what he does is he goes outside and says, son, come in. Come in and sit at the table. You see, even though he didn't come in and the story fades out and sit at the table, what was unjust to him and what felt so wrong is that his enemy would be spoiled and that we would have been brought into the family. But what ends up happening is it's an invitation to him. And as we partake of his body and blood, here's what I want you to think about. He prepared this in the presence of our enemies. Not only did he prepare it in the presence of our enemies, he used the hands of our enemies to rip his body open and spill his blood and to give us this. Our enemies prepared the plate, his body and blood is what we feast on. This is the meal that he prepares for us in the presence of our enemies. And this kind of meal, as we partake and come to the table, and as we drink this together, we're drinking his body and blood, the meal prepared for us. And our enemies go, why would they receive such grace?
Right.
And it's far from us to be able to look at the body and blood of Jesus and say, no, I will execute. I will bring about.
Yeah.
There's one thing that we would be a voice. The blood is crying out for justice. The blood of Abel is crying out for justice. But Hebrews said, the blood of Christ cries out a better word. Instead of a curse, it cries out blessing. And church, as we partake of this, we are drinking of a blessing we didn't deserve.
Spoiled.
We are spoiled.
Yeah.
He is spoiling us in the presence of our enemies. And so as you think about his body broken for you, think about all those enemies who are around who want your death and murder and are unjust and deserve justice.
Yeah.
And the way he's doing it is by spoiling you in the presence of your enemies.
Amen.
This is his body broken for you. Let's eat it in remembrance of him. Let's eat together. This is the blood of the new covenant. You are in covenant with him. This is his blood spilt for you, shed for you, healing you, cleansing you, washing you, spoiling you. Let's drink it as a feast in remembrance of him. I want to say that I'm sorry for how long this service took today, but I'm not. I want you to do a couple things. We're going to sing a song together. Oh, praise the one who paid my debt, who raised my life from the dead. We're going to worship him together. The other thing I would just encourage you to do as an activation is, would you sit down and spend time with the Lord and write your own Psalms 23 version and send it to us. We want to hear it. Those links will be there. Make sure you give generously. Make sure you're a part of all that's happening across, but make sure did you want to add something?
Yeah. Even your kids.
Yeah, have your kids do it.
Help your kids write it. Our kids are profound.
Yeah.
And the way they hear and they see and they understand is precious.
That's beautiful.
Sit with your kids, walk them through a line at a time, and have them repeat to you what they hear and write it down.
I love that. Do it with your children. Get involved. We would love you all. We're ready for worship. Let's dive into worship. Let's sing to him, and let's remember. Let's walk in forgiveness, love, and grace like our Father did for us.
The Savior say, thy strength indeed is small. Child of weakness, watch and pray. Find in me thine all in all. time my soul is saved, it melts my heart of stone. Jesus paid it all to him I owe. Sin had left a crimson stain, he washed it white as snow. Before the throne, and I stand in him complete. I will lay my trophies down, lay them down at Jesus' feet. Jesus paid it all to him I owe. Jesus paid it all to him I owe. Jesus paid it all to him I owe. Sin had left a crimson stain, he washed it white as snow. Praise the one who paid my debt, who rose his life up from the dead. No, praise the one who paid my debt, who rose his life up from the dead. Oh, praise the one who paid my debt, who rose his life up from the dead. Oh, praise the one who paid my debt. Who rose his life up from the dead?
The Bible says he's the King of the Jews. He's the King of Israel. He's the King of righteousness. He's the King of the ages. He's the King of heaven. He's the King of glory. He's the King of kings, and he is the Lord of lords. Now that's my King. David said the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. No means of measure can define his limitless love. No far-seeing telescope can bring into visibility the coastline of his shoulder supply. No barriers can hinder him from pouring out his blessings. Well, he's enduringly strong. He's entirely sincere. He's eternally steadfast. He's immortally graceful. He's imperially powerful. And he's impartially merciful. That's my King. He's God's Son. He's the sinner's Savior. He's the centerpiece of civilization. He stands alone in himself. He's awesome. He's unique. He's unparalleled. He's unprecedented. He's supreme. He's preeminent. Well, he's the loftiest idea in literature. He's the highest personality in philosophy. He's the supreme problem in high criticism. He's the fundamental doctrine of true theology. He's the cardinal necessity of spiritual religion. And that's my King. He's the miracle of the age. He's the superlative of everything good that you choose to call him. He's the only one able to supply all of our needs simultaneously. He supplies strength for the weak. He's available for the tempted and the tried. He sympathizes and he saves. He starves God and he dies. He heals the sick. He cleanses the leprous. He forgives sinners. He discharges debtors. And he delivers the captives. He defends the feeble. He blesses the young. He serves the unfortunate. He regards the aged. He rewards the diligent. And he beautifies the meek. Do you know him? Well, my King is the key of knowledge. He's a wellspring of wisdom. He's a doorway of deliverance. He's a pathway of peace. He's a roadway of righteousness. He's a highway of holiness. He's a gateway of glory. He's the master of the mighty. He's the captain of the conquerors. He's the head of the heroes. He's the leader of the legislators. He's the overseer of the overcomers. He's the governor of governors. He's the prince of princes. He's the king of kings. And he's the Lord of lords. That's my King. Yeah! Yeah! That's my King. My King. Yeah! His office is manifold. His promise is sure. His life is matchless. His goodness is limitless. His mercy is everlasting. His love never changes. His word is enough. His grace is sufficient. His reign is righteous. His yoke is easy and his burden is light. Well, I wish I could describe him to you, but he's indescribable. He's indescribable. Yeah. He's incomprehensible. He's invincible. He's irresistible. I'm trying to tell you, the heavens of heavens cannot contain him, let alone a man explain him. You can't get him out of your mouth. You can't get him off of your hand. You can't outlive him, and you can't live without him. Well, the Pharisees couldn't stand it, but they found out they couldn't stop it. Pilate couldn't find any fault in him. The witnesses couldn't get their testimony to agree. And Herod couldn't kill him. Death couldn't handle him, and the grave couldn't hold him. That's my King. Yeah! He always has been, and he always will be. I'm talking about he had no predecessor, and he'll have no successor. There was nobody before him, and there'll be nobody after him. You can't impeach him, and he's not going to resign. That's my is the kingdom and the power and the glory. The glory is all his. Thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever and ever. And when you get through with all of the forever, then amen.